Well, Black Panther has arrived in Marvel's Avengers with the War for Wakanda expansion, and this is the latest addition to the game since Kate Bishop and Hawkeye were added shortly after the main release in September 2020. So today, I'm going to be checking out the War for Wakanda and I'll give you my first impressions. Well, as a little background on my experience with Marvel Avengers, I did play through the main campaign and then fell off shortly afterwards, so I didn't really get too much into the endgame content as I would have liked, given the loot isn't very well represented in the game, So I did enjoy the main story campaign and treated it kind of like a single-player game, and since the game launched back in September 2020, a PS5 upgrade has been released, plus the new expansions, their free content, so I thought I'd jump back into the game and see if the War for Wakanda will be enough to bring me back in. It is worth noting, the PS5 update is free, and also the DLCs are free, as I mentioned. So if you have fallen off the game, I would recommend jumping back in, especially if you've got a PS5, because the game does look really, really beautiful. Well, the War for Wakanda is the biggest expansion to Marvel's Avengers so far, and one of the great features of the game is you don't have to level up your existing characters, as Black Panther's adventure acts as a standalone story, so you can jump in immediately. If you're like me, you've also got Kate Bishop and Hawkeye's story to jump into as well. So this is different from other live service style games, where there's a certain amount of leveling up necessary to get into the new content. Well, there's none of that here, so as soon as the expansion arrived, you can jump in immediately. Well, the War for Wakanda is an original story, and the team at Crystal Dynamics collaborated with Evan Narcisse, a writer from the Black Panther comic series, and the story picks up after the events of A-Day, the base campaign in Marvel's Avengers. So King T'Challa, he's closed the borders of Wakanda. However, Ulysses Klaue has somehow found his way in, and Klaue wants the country's vibranium, and T'Challa has to team up with the Avengers to push him out of the kingdom. So Black Panther is the new playable character introduced in the War for Wakanda, and he's a close-up, all-action character who plays in a similar way to Black Widow, so you can attack with punches, kicks, but you've also got range attacks too. He's got a lethal pounce where you leap forward towards enemies and then pin them to the ground, and you've got that percussive blast attacks with the blast of kinetic energy, and there's also the devastating daggers, a range attack with knives. So you've got a couple of heroic attacks too, including the Salt King's Mercy, where you summon a vibranium spear and throw it through your enemies, pinning them to the ground. So the support heroic is called Kimono Beads, which acts as a support stunning enemies. And then T'Challa's ultimate heroic summons a spectral projection of a panther, which grants Black Panther a major damage buff. So as well as Black Panther himself, Wakanda is another huge component of the expansion. So this includes the lush jungle, as well as a new outpost called Bininzana, the capital city of Wakanda. So the new environments, they're huge, filled with enemies and secrets to find too. So in my first few hours of the gameplay, I really enjoyed the environmental puzzles, like identifying the correct runes to unlock the areas of the jungle, and it felt more like a Zelda game than the previous installment of Marvel's Avengers. So you've got new enemies too accompanying Klaue. He's got vibranium-powered mercenaries, with soldiers with sonic abilities as well, and there's spider-like crawler enemies, which offer a nice variety to the combat and also the enemy types as well. The production value of the expansion is huge. There's a great cast of voice actors, the environments look and sound great, and it really feels like you're playing a part in a Black Panther movie. I really like the original story, so I'm not really the biggest Marvel fan. I like the movies, but I don't go into the backstory or the comics or anything, so anything outside the movies for me is pretty new. Finally, in terms of features of the update, there's some huge UI updates as well. The character menu's been updated with all the important information on one screen, and that allows quick access to gear and upgrades, spending less time in menus and more time in the action. So all of this stuff is a really, really welcome addition. And the War for Wakanda promises 25 hours of gameplay, a new single-player campaign of a series of short stories, plus we've got new live events coming soon. So my initial impressions of the expansion so far, they're pretty good. It's been a minute since I played and the combat feels really good, and it offers a unique gameplay experience. I don't know another game where I can jump in and play as Black Panther, whereas there's plenty of other games where I can play as Hulk, Iron Man or Captain America. Black Panther feels great to play as. He's a close-up martial arts style character, and he can be jumping around the enemies in no time at all. I did find the opening a little bit tricky, but I'm putting this down to me being a little bit rusty in the game, having not really played the game for about a year or so. And the environments, they're lush, and the story content so far is entertaining, and the set pieces are pretty spectacular. But having said all that, after only a few hours, I did feel that familiar sinking feeling coming back again. The gameplay is repetitive, though entertaining at first. I can't really imagine this holding my attention for much longer than the campaign. The enemy AI doesn't really feel that smart, and the boss battles are fairly basic when compared to other games that are out there on the market. And the game was and still is very button mashy, but I'm going to stick with it for the campaign and finish that up because I'd like to see where the story goes and also Black Panther's interactions with the other Avengers too. Now, if you're like me and haven't picked up the Avengers for a little while, now is the perfect time to jump back in. The expansion is free, plus if you've got a PS5 you can upgrade your game to the current gen version. Now, I originally bought the game back on the PS4, half because of the promise of Spider-Man sometime in the future, but it's great to get that next grade upgrade for free in the War for Wakanda. You know, after some time away from the game, the fatigue of the original gameplay is gone, and the story is quite entertaining. I would love this game to succeed. However, I'm not really sure there's enough to bring me back in past the campaign, so it's going to be interesting to see it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this game goes. Well, the developer is Crystal Dynamics, the publisher is Square Enix, it's on PS4, PS5 and PC, and the release date for this DLC was the 17th of August 2021. Well, that is it for my first impressions of the War for Wakanda expansion for Marvel's Avengers. And thank you so much for watching. For more video game content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. If you want to join the community, check out the Discord link in the description, or you can follow me on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.